I know we have a lot to talk about, and we'll talk about it when the episode fully gets started.
Yeah,
Try not to like ask too many questions off the bat.
you're all good, man.
But uh, but yeah, I'm stoked. The new album sounds great. I'm stoked on it, and
Thank you.
I'm stoked that you wanted to come back on and chat about it.
Oh, absolutely. Last time was a blast, and yeah, dude, you were so kind and generous last time. I was like, oh my god, I talked for 2 hours. I'll I'll try to keep it more brief this time. I was like, that poor man had to listen to me talk for 2 hours.
Dude, I had no problem with it whatsoever. It was a good
Cool,
time, and I'm stoked to be doing another one.
cool, man. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it too.
Hell yeah. I also love the vinyl wall behind you. I don't remember.
Oh, thank you.
I don't think you had that behind. I don't think you used that as your backdrop the last time.
I didn't. I was in the other room last time, and I had all the quotes from the Missing You video behind me.
That's right.
So I did that last time, but we talked about vinyl a lot on the podcast, the previous one. So I thought I'd give you a look at my obsession.
Hell yeah.
Unhealthy,
I mean,
but awesome.
that's honestly that's goals right there.
Yeah, it's wild, dude. It's extensive. I've tapered back recently, but it's yeah. I've run out of things that I'm like. I bought a hard to find one. So Dashboard Confessionals, Mark Mission, A Brand of Scar. I was looking for an original pressing of that, and I finally got one for fairly decent price. And that was like I was like, all right, I need to take a break. Got to save some money. So, but
Yeah,
yeah.
I feel that. That's kind of how I was when I first started. Was like I was trying to get like my some of my grails right away, and then I was like, okay, I'll ease into this because like there's some things that I got that are like first pressings right away that
Hmm.
I shouldn't have spent that much money on as
Yep.
a new collector at all.
We all do it. We all do it,
Yeah,
man. Yeah.
but I'm also now starting to ease back into getting stuff again to start expanding the collection once more. But
Awesome.
yeah.
Cool.
And I know you got some drinks on that side.
I do,
Said you
sir.
got a nice unopened one to crack with me here.
I got it, man. I've been waiting
Hell
for
yeah.
you.
Well, what I'll do is sadly I don't have PBRs tonight. I got Colt 45s.
Oh, oh man. Excellent.
Uh, but I'll count us down. We'll crack these beers and do the intro and bring you in.
Excellent.
All right. In three, two, one. Welcome to the Beers with Bands podcast with your host, Michael Torres. What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Beers with Bands. Very stoked to be welcoming this person back to the show. I'm sitting down with Neal, aka SeeMoreGlass. How are you doing?
Doing excellent, man. Glad to be here.
I'm stoked. Like I said before we got started, I'm stoked to have you back. It's been a hot minute since you were on. We were recounting the time that we recorded Spring Break, which would have been, I think you guys do Spring Break in March.
Yeah, so yeah, 2022, I think. Yep.
Yeah, so March of 22. Neal's last episode was episode 85. Actually, I went back and looked it up. Um,
Wow.
so episode 85. That was the the YouTubes that I was doing. So now everyone can see your lovely face on this
Woo.
episode. We talked about kind of like if you've never listened to Seymour Glass, that's a good episode to go back and kind of start because we kind of talked origin story and we talked about at the time your latest LP, Roaring Paper Spring, which is still phenomenal. I forgot to grab my copy to put it up behind me, but thank you again for sending me a copy of that. It's
Absolutely.
it's also I like one of the cooler covers that I have in my whole collection. Because I remember
Wow.
when we
Thank you.
kind of talked about all that, and definitely everyone that's listening, go listen to Roaring Paper Spring. Is basically what I'm getting at.
Excellent. Thank you.
Uh, and I mean, we've had obviously 2.5 years since we've last talked. A lot's happened. We have a new record that we're going to talk about here in a little bit, called "The Things in Life That I Can't Leave Behind," which is phenomenal, and I feel like a great follow up to Roaring Paper Spring. But some other fun things that have happened is I know it's been a year ago, but you played your first show in 13 years as of last year. You know,
Yes.
how was that?
Wow, man, you said that and I was like, did I? Uh yeah, well, it was a small show and I was asked by a local woman who runs a writers guild actually, and she's friends with my wife Rachel, and she was like, "Would you come and like speak and tell stories?" And I was like, "Yeah, absolutely." So we set it up and I went and did it. I played acoustic and I mean, it went great. It was an interesting experience because everybody was much older. So I was playing for a lot of an older crowd and there was like maybe 15 people there. But they were all very sweet and and gracious, and I really didn't know what to expect, and I was, but it was a fun time. So was it a show? Eh, but it was fun, and it was cool to be a part of that community, and just kind of like, because I live in a very small town, so it was cool to see people being like, "Oh yeah, we actually care about writing." I was like, "Oh, cool." So,
Well, I
but yeah,
mean,
it was fun
show wise or not, it's still a performance, and you're able to kind of get up there and kind of dust the cobwebs off after
for
13
sure, man.
years.
Yeah.
Was it a little daunting to when you got the ask of, hey, do you want to play this? Do you want to like play songs for the first time in so long?
I was a little nervous, not so much for the playing live. I think it was more just because they wanted me to like tell stories. And I was just kind of like, okay, what stories do I tell and what songs do I play and what stories do I include with that? So I kind of had to go back through my uh repertoire of of music and think like what songs have really cool stories that go along with them, and also which ones translate really well to acoustic. So that was pretty fun for me. But I wasn't super nervous. I was more just like, I don't know what to expect, so I just kind of went into it and was like, I guess we'll see what happens. And it was a nice time, and they were very sweet, and it kind of made me want to play shows again. And then I went out. My mother-in-law plays in a band, like a local cover band, and they do like really cool like country. So they sing like Linda Ronstadt, things like that. And I watched them carry equipment around, and I was like, yeah, I don't miss that. So I was like, meh, I don't know. But I said on the last podcast, I'll never say never, but I don't know when it would happen again. But it was a fun experience.
Yeah. Well, hopefully it gets to happen again. Whether it's things like that or like open mics, go out and just kind of fulfill the urge that's kind of there. Especially like with these songs, you're putting all the time kind of into them, so it's nice to have that at least once form of outlet to be like, okay, I at least played some of these shows to a crowd of some sort of people instead of just
Yes.
like having them kept in their on their vinyl or something like that in
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
aspect.
Let them breathe a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. Well, if anyone from Footshell is listening, here's Neal. Seymour Glass could always
Man,
come through. It's in the same
hit me
state.
up.
See what happens.
Hit me up. We'll figure it out as long as it's in the summer when I'm on summer vacation. During the
Yeah,
school year, we're rough.
yeah. They kind of flipped that whole schedule around. This year was in June. I think last year was in October. So we'll see when the
Okay.
next one actually is. Um,
Yeah.
but I think that'd be pretty cool. I know a lot of the DIY homies off of Twitter would be pretty stoked to see you there and stuff like that.
Oh man, thank you. Yeah. Well, maybe one day we'll see. I'll never say never.
Yeah.
So
uh, but then we're gonna start to now we're up to the point where the album comes out. Obviously the 18th of October. So the time that this episode comes out, it'll be out for about a month.
okay.
Is the way I kind of got that figured. Now I remember Rolling Paper Spring was 4 years in the making.
Yeah.
Obviously, we talked. It was stemmed from a lot of like trauma going up with like the Trump organization and all of that mess and bullshit that we're
Oh
still
yeah.
dealing with basically today.
Yeah.
Um, do you feel like this album, obviously 2 years difference, that it was like easier to come and like kind of build rather than like the 4 year wait that you had?
Yeah, well, this album came a lot easier. So I feel like a lot of the beginning of Roaring Paper Spring was just me like I think the first 2 years of Roaring Paper Spring were really hard because I put so much pressure on myself. And I was just really like, okay, I have to do this. I have to write. And I was going through a lot like personally and just like emotionally. So and when the songs wouldn't come, I would be really hard on myself. But then as I went along that process, it wasn't um as emotional. Like I started going to therapy around that time, and that really kind of helped and eased a lot of the anxiety. And I learned to be a little easier on myself and not as judgmental. And once I kind of learned that, the songs started coming easier in that process. So with this album, I would say they came very easy. And it this project was also something that I didn't really expect to do, so much like Roaring Paper Spring, like I was just like, I don't know if this is going to be a thing. I don't know how this is going to work. And it ended up happening. This album came about the same way, uh, and it was very quick. And the reason that I'm putting it out so quick, there's two reasons actually. This album I feel like is very political in nature, not so much in like anti-Trump down with the government, but I think it's more about how capitalism affects the individual and
Mm.
more so that like relationships. So there's a lot about like there's these kind of bigger songs about like politics and um I shouldn't even say politics, just like the emotional weight of our government right now and the emotional weight of capitalism. But then there's also these very kind of small, intimate songs. But I think all of it kind of carries the trauma of that type of stuff. So yeah, I this album came very easy because there was a lot of like anger that informed it. But I also feel like it was lyrically very much a continuation of Roaring Paper Spring. Um,
Yeah, I would agree that it is a good continuation from War and Paper Spring, and kind of going off what you're saying with like you have some of these, uh, you know, kind of anti-government style songs. Like obviously we start off with Deliverance, which is talking about like friends that have in the army that at the time were like so happy to go serve their country, but now like if you were to ask them like do they really feel the same way with how kind of everything's turning, and then
yeah.
obviously we kind of go through the whole list and you get to oh there was one like birthday parties for capitalism, uh is another good song that kind of just showcases like kind of like the angstiness that you're kind of putting out. I feel like this one compared to Roaring Paper Spring, which I did listen to a little bit leading up back up to this, has a little bit more angst in this record. It could almost be like the darker B side of Roaring Paper Spring in a way. But
Well
it's
put.
nice to
Yeah.
kind of see.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, I would agree with you completely on that. Roaring Paper Spring, I think I was creating the hope that I needed during the Trump presidency just because like for me it was just like I needed that to stay alive.
Hmm.
It was exhausting. And then I think once the dust settled, um in these past 2 years and like we're seeing all of this kind of ramp back up again, and I mean the first round was crazy and I feel like it's just full-blown insanity now, like the things that are happening that we're seeing in our country. I mean I so much of that anger on the record just came from this places like of like what the hell is going on, and just this this infuriation with hypocrisy. Like I'm just so over hypocrisy and people saying one thing and doing another. And even like the other night with the vice presidential debate, and I will try to stay out of politics as much as I can when talking about this record, but even like JD Vance being like, you said you weren't going to fact check me. It's like, when did that even
Right.
become an option? Like of course they're going to fact check you because they're the news and that's what the news should do. And it's weird that we just accept that as like, oh, well, that was I had somebody say, "Well, that's what they agreed to," and I was like, "Are you out of your mind? Like, how are we just tacitly accepting this madness as a society?" It's very disturbing to me. And yeah, so Deliverance and Surrender to the Sound and Birthday Parties for Capitalism. Those three songs really were about just like looking around and being like, "What the hell is going on right now? I don't understand."
Yeah, and like the rough thing is like, and also not to get into, I'm obviously not a political podcast or anything like that, but like
Sure.
it's crazy because like it feels like with how everything's going right now, it feels like there's a kind of like a, obviously this will come out after the election, so hopefully what I say makes it to that point. But it feels like there's like some sort of light at the end of this tunnel. But
Yes.
you just know that like at the same time, there's still all of these people that are still so pro Trump and so pro this ideology that is facilitated out of thin air half the time.
Yeah.
That is kind of sad and disheartening. So it's really hard to kind of like how the songs are like. Would I want to fight for the country that it is now? And like you're at least putting it out there in a way that like obviously I've never been in the army, probably would never because that's not my thing. But
Sure.
you know, it just it's nice to see it come through in this song the way that you have it, where
Thank
it's not
you.
like Rage Against the Machine in your face. It more
Right.
is on a level where you can actually like soak it in and like think about it at the same time. And it's really well done. I know I had like three different points in that whole little segment,
No, I
but
mean,
like yeah,
and thank you for saying that. So, like, also full disclosure, like, you're the first person I'm really kind of getting, besides my wife Rachel and you know, like my couple friends who have heard it. Like Tony did the artwork and he listened to it. I didn't get a whole lot of feedback from Tony, but um you're the first person to really kind of like inform me how this album is really being read or being heard. So hearing you say that, the way that it makes you think about it, it really is. It makes me so happy because I never, like, always kind of tried to stray away from political songs because I feel like they can be a bit off-putting and brash sometimes. You know. And as much as I love Rage Against the Machine, I am not a Rage Against the Machine type of writer, you know, like, and I don't have that type of voice. And it was like how I was just trying to give voice to the fear and the frustration that I had, but I didn't want to come off sounding preachy, because
yeah,
that's really obnoxious. And I'm really glad. Thank you for that. That I didn't. I tried to pose these things as questions. You know, like I wonder if they'd feel the same way now. If you know, is it feels like knowledge a privilege or a burden? You know, does reason mean does freedom mean anything at all? Like these questions that are kind of rhetorical in a sense, but I think also makes the listener kind of ask questions. At least I hope so. Um, so yeah, it's been a wild couple years just watching all of this, you know, stuff ramp up again. And you know, I feel like sometimes I feel like a bit of an alarmist too. I hope this podcast episode comes out and people hear it and they're like, oh, they breathe a sigh of relief or, you know, whatever, because it's like, oh, it's over and good things have happened. But at the same time, that uncertainty is very unsettling. And the way that people are just kind of still either embracing these dangerous ideologies or also like just pretending like nothing bad's going to happen really disturbs me.
yeah,
I don't know what to do with those feelings, so I really kind of put them into these songs. You mentioned Deliverance. I mean, Deliverance starts off the record specifically about that, you know, and kind of I think sets the tone. The chorus is like, it makes you want to start a revolution in the margins, and that line, like, start a revolution in the margins, like we have to start small, like we have to
hmm
start. And also it goes into the theme of the record, which is about like we don't even it's not just about changing society, it's about changing ourselves and the way that we conduct ourselves as individuals. And me personally, which I think when we get towards the end of the record, I think it really kind of comes full circle with that.
Yeah. No, yeah. Overall, I thought it was a great record. You know, and the tough thing, and I know it's kind of what you were saying, is like tough thing with anything when you write like a song that might have some sort of politicalness with it. It's you don't want to be preachy, but you also don't want to be like over the top or anything like that. And I felt like
Yeah,
this came off super well in the form of being like, hey, this isn't like because you can get some people that will be like, oh, this is like an anti America record or songs or anything like that. But it's really not. It's more just like you said earlier, it's like kind of almost an anti-government, but like questioning the ways that the government has done things,
yeah,
and in
yeah.
retrospect. So it doesn't feel like I feel like anyone could probably listen to it. Obviously, there some people might have differing views, but I don't think if anyone tries to come at you, I'm saying right now on this podcast, it's not an anti-America record. Uh,
Absolutely not. Thank you. Thank you
yeah,
for saying that. And like, just to talk a little bit more about that. I really love that this is kind of the first thing that we're talking about. I think that's really cool because it really informed a lot of it. But what was I going to say? I love my country, like, and I say that wholeheartedly. I think there are a lot of amazing things that are possible as a result of our Constitution and our Bill of Rights, but I also am very frustrated with the way we are taking away people's individual freedoms, the way that we are demonizing the poor, the way that we are allowing the rich to constantly steal and run away with money that could go to help other people, and like passing it off as some weird Christian like virtue to be rich. And it's like it astounds me. And I just can't I can't deal with it. I can't understand how we can stare all of this hypocrisy in the face consistently and just kind of continue to pretend like it's not happening. But I absolutely love my country, and I think a phrase that's always stuck with me, and I wish I knew who said it. I'm sure someone could fill us in here, but dissent is the ultimate form of patriotism. I love my country so much that I question it and I want it to be the best that it can be. I don't just accept that it is what it is. And I think we should all really. I think most people should feel that way. Like we look around. I mean, this is a really incredible place to have opportunities, and there's a lot of beautiful, wonderful people from different cultures and experiences and identities. And rather than demonizing that, we should embrace it. We should look to our neighbors and question and ask and tell stories and be creative. And you know and it makes me sad that I look around and all I see are people just like bummed out and dragged down by their careers or their jobs, and they were exhausted, and people aren't getting paid enough to live. And I see, I work at a school, and I see students who are struggling with families who have drug issues and things like that. And it's like, what is happening to help these people? And I don't see a clear answer, and that frustrates me. And that's really what Deliverance is about. Is like we have to do something. Um, One of my favorite parts of that song is the interlude, um, where I say, I was taught never to take what I don't need, always pay back the debts I owe. We've all got the responsibility of pulling up our bootstraps till we're old. And then the last part of it is, I've always watched you take what you don't need, never pay back the time you stole. But if no one takes responsibility, we'll be pulling up our bootstraps till we're too damn old to start a revolution in the margins. And that was a line that I was very proud of because I felt like it said exactly what I wanted to say, because we focus on this bootstrap mentality, this, personal responsibility aspect, but we don't give anybody the tools to actually, build themselves up anymore. We used to have that, and we don't. And it sucks to be a teacher specifically and prepare young people to be a part of the world, and then just be like, I I don't know what to do. I don't know where to point, what direction to point you in, because I don't see a lot of opportunity at the moment.
yeah,
It's scary.
yeah. That's rough,
Yeah.
especially like for you being more on that front line and looking with like, the future of our generations with
Hmm.
these kids and like trying to guide them in some sort of way, but like you said, like where do you guide them? Like where do you point them to go? Like with how
Yeah,
everything's going.
that's really the question. I mean, because like college is so freaking expensive that, and most of them can't afford to do it, or they'll be in debt their entire lives, and or they go into the workforce and they don't get paid a wage that allows them to live a decent life.
Yeah,
So like, what do you do? And I think we're kind of staring down the barrel of a revolution right now. Not in terms of like violent revolution, but a revolution of thought. Um, I think because the way it's going just doesn't feel like it's working anymore. It feels a bit broken. But that's not to say that it can't be fixed. Uh, I don't know. I hope it can be.
yeah, I do as well. I see. We're both kind of in the Midwest. I see a few different programs here, at least in the Twin Cities, that kind of are helpful in a lot of ways to for people that do go in the workforce.
Yeah,
We have like this. It's kind of like a I think like a nonprofit workforce school, like basically like a community college style. So like I know there's things there, but there's not things everywhere, which is the bummer of
yeah,
those things. Where it's nice to have it here, but it's like why can't we have that where you're at or in all these communities to kind of get these
yeah.
kids, at least if they're going to go that route, something that'll teach them and get them where they need to be.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's really hard right now, I think, for everybody. Even people who are Trump supporters, and I think some of them, that's why, they support him, is because they feel like, he's going to allow them to prosper. I mean, I vehemently disagree, and I don't think there's anything in there, but I think people see a solution in that. Um, Whatever that may be. And I feel sad for everybody involved that is kind of getting the short end of the stick right now, because it just feels like it's a massive issue. It's not just like a small town. It feels like it's everywhere. It's across the entire country.
Yeah. uh, Before we kind of since we've been talking about deliverance,
Sure.
there's for people that listen to these episodes, everyone knows I love sound clips being added to songs, and this one starts off
Yeah.
with a pretty pretty good sound clip to set the tone. I feel like for the record. Um,
Thank you.
what was the idea behind pulling this one in specifically, and was it always meant to kind of start this record?
Oh man. Well, I had a whole bunch of different clips that I had on the docket for this one because I really love doing that with Roaring Paper Spring. I thought that was really fun. And I'm a big fan of that too. I always love it when bands do that. So this one, actually, I have, it's probably right behind me, but I have a record. It's a Cadman record, which Cadman put out a lot of like people reading their literature, like poets reading their own
Hmm.
poetry and stuff. And I'm a literature teacher, so that's kind of my thing. But they put out this record called what that had immigrants who came to America in like the 40s and 50s, or like 30s, 40s, and 50s, and they're telling their stories about coming to America, like what that experience was like. And I bought it as a curiosity, and I listened to it, and it was crazy to see how many of their stories still resonated and still felt very present right now. Specifically, the man that I put on the record, his name is Austin Hogan, and he was an Irish immigrant. And at the beginning of the record, he's describing like his first experience seeing New York. And I thought when I heard it, like as soon as I heard it, I knew it was going to start the record. It was because it's such a striking image, and I think it really shows the dichotomy of America. So it's like, he's walking up Main Street. He says, the first time he experienced it, he says, in a place like this, how on earth could anybody die? I think is the quote. And then he walks up the street and he sees all the lights and the neon signs, and then he says, my goodness, what a waste of electricity. And I think that is just, I mean, to hear an Irish immigrant who came to America just point out exactly what's wrong with our country, like 80 years ago. I mean, we have these incredible, beautiful opportunities. We have this incredible landscape. We have talented, wonderful artists and brilliant people everywhere. And it's like, I feel like we're just using it to just produce and produce and produce. And we're not engaging with culture or art or creativity. And we're not fostering that. So yeah, that hit me really hard, and I knew as soon as I heard it, I was like, this has to start the record. And when I wrote Deliverance, I actually wanted that to start the record because the first line is, I grew up watching planes fly people into buildings, which even when I wrote that line, I was like, oof, I don't know, like that's pretty intense.
Yeah.
But the more I thought about it, when you think about September 11th and just how much it informed our political landscape right now and how much it informed my life, just as a person, and watching this massive division happen in our country, I almost feel like it was the first step. Because I'm sure you remember this too. Like there was a time before 9/11, and there's a time after. I I never really realized until I got older. But now that I've been older and I've been reflecting on it a bit more, I realize how much that experience really just shifted the world, for myself, and I think for our country and for everyone. It's been wild.
Yeah. Another wild way to start a song, and I think it's in. Oh, I'm gonna probably mess it up. I think it's. Is it in Birthday Parties for Capitalism where you come out
Probably.
saying it was to punch the fascist in the face line?
Yeah. When I'm
Yeah,
upset, I want to put my fist through the face of a fascist. Yeah.
yeah. Like that was another line that like once that one started, I was like, oh shit, okay, like hell yeah.
Good, good. I love that you had that reaction. Yeah, I played that for Rachel, and she was like, "Whoa." Yeah, she's kind of my barometer. She always has been, of like, does this work? Is this good? And I always kind of, if she doesn't like it, usually I'm like, okay, I need to go back to the drawing board. But that line was very visceral, and I think it kind of punches you in the face. And it's like, isn't that how we should feel?
Yeah,
I mean, shouldn't we want to do that? Like, get like not be on the side of the fascists? Because the other side of that line is, or alleviate a burden, like stop somebody from suffering. So I want to beat up people who are, causing destruction and violence, and I want to alleviate the suffering of others. So yeah, I and the rest of that song is really just I feel like a condemnation of the hypocrisy of what's going on right now. I could talk about that song for an hour. I really could.
but yeah, it's just a great way to start that song, and like with the whole message behind the rest of the song, like it hooks you in right away. Obviously, no pun intended, right hook? I don't know. But like you're definitely captivated because it's such a a tough line to come out to start the song with. I guess it's like
Yeah.
coming out swinging from a South Philly basement, basically. Like
Yeah.
it's just right in your face in the great way. So like earlier when I said this is a very angsty Seymour Glass that we're seeing, like that's no joke, obviously.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, man. Yeah, I don't, I think it's definitely angstier, and I think it's a lot more frustrated. But I think there are a few moments of tenderness, and hope, specifically in Rosebud, and I think also in All Quitters Are Romantic, Harvard. I think those two songs are really kind of have this more uplifting moments at the end of them. And really those songs are about my experience with my wife Rachel, and she really inspired, I mean, she's inspired a lot of songs that I've written, but those two particularly, Rosebuds. I've said this to multiple people and they've been like, really? But I think Rosebud's probably one of my favorite songs that I've ever written, and I don't know if I'll ever top it lyrically. I'm very passionate about that song. I feel very strongly about what it says.
Yeah, one that's I feel like very bold words. I hope like it's great that you feel like that's your best song that you'll probably never top. But I also, as like a fan, I hope that maybe something will spark. Not necessarily like obviously it's about your wife and your partner. So hopefully, like, don't take this the wrong way. Hopefully, there's more in the wheelhouse that you feel like might uh, at one day be better, because
Oh
it
yeah.
is a great song, and I don't mean, however this is coming out
No,
really weird in my mouth.
I totally get what you're saying, man. Here, I'll try and paraphrase for you. You hope that I continue to like push myself and farther,
Yes,
that I don't just kind of be like, all right, that's it. No, I don't plan on stopping. Yeah, but I really do love that song, and I think the ending of it with where I give the line, we always find truth, we always find love, and watch it multiply like dandelions in June. I just when that was another line, but when I wrote it, I was like, wow, I'm really happy with this. I think this is saying something unique and interesting, in a way that I've never really heard anybody else say it. Yeah, it was a cool song to write, and it came
yeah.
together fairly quickly too. So
And it's nice that those songs are in there. Where like obviously we talked about like the main three more like
yeah,
anti-capitalist songs, but it's nice that you have like these other songs peppered in. But it's the whole way that the record works is like it doesn't feel like it's two different tones in the entire thing. Like it all flows very
mhm,
nicely. Where yes, you get through like kind of like these songs about your wife and partner, and then go into like a an anti-capitalist song, but you don't feel like it's like, oh, did I just listen to like did I hit random or something? Like it doesn't feel
yeah.
like that.
That was actually one of my concerns, about it. But one of the common themes, that I kind of touched on when we were talking about deliverance, is this idea that it's about like the way that it is this. It starts off in this like kind of massive scope of like these big questions about society and these realizations that like if we keep doing the same thing over and over again, it's never going to get fixed. But then there's also a recognition with, if we're not here, we're probably somewhere else. I would say at Funeral Pasta, Surrender to the Sound, Rosebud, um, uh, Harvard, excuse me. All five of those songs are relationship songs, and I think they're all relationships of songs about how you know capitalism has impacted our relationship and the way that we exist together. you know um so to kind of go back to Surrender to the Sound, like that song starts off, with, we're cauterizing wounds on the weekends, a pair of perpetual bookends, pursuing powder kegs to offset how we felt. And that whole thing is like, it's just like we are just like going through the motions, propping ourselves up, and like, exploding just to kind of offset the pain of existence. And then the next one, sent a little text from the driveway, honey, would you tell me that you're okay? The car backfired again, and I'm afraid to leave the house. It's just kind of a reference to all the gun violence that's been happening. Especially as a teacher, I'm very fortunate to work at a school where I don't really feel that fear of will somebody bring a gun, but it's always there, it's always present in my mind. And that's something that never really goes away. And it goes back to that idea of like, why are we just accepting this as reality now? Why is this just what it is? I don't know. So that fear kind of made it into the song. Uh, I mean that was that first verse came out, and it was, as it came out, like that's what it is on the record, because I think those fears were just so visceral and honest. But
Yeah, I mean I hope I hope with these lighter days ahead we get to see a different side of
yeah,
Seymour Glass at some point.
yeah, I'm so
Because I
sorry, man. I
no
feel
no
like I'm a massive bummer.
no, you're fine. You're totally fine. I've listened to I mean by the time this episode's come out, like I've had A Place for Owls on, I've had Southtown Lanes, like they all those are probably two of the records this year that I've listened to that are the most the sad records I've listened to in a while. And like, so
Okay.
this is nothing off-putting or anything like
Okay.
that.
Sure.
It's just, we have all these things that are going on, but at the same time, like, you're using it so well to kind of reformulate and put your thoughts to pen to paper and basically put out these songs where like they're coming out so well done. Where as much as I'd love to see like what a happy Seymour Glass record looks like, I also
Oh,
love these two records that we've gotten a chance to talk about, because I get to see exactly like how it's coming from you.
thank
So it'd be like you're doing great. It would just, I wish the world would be a better place for you at the same time.
you know what? And I think it will be. I wanna make sure, like, I do still have hope, and I do feel like, things I'm hoping are going to move in a positive direction. I want to believe that, and even with all of the despair, I think that happens within this record. I do still have those feelings of hope. It's just, man, it's bleak.
Yeah.
It's bleak, and I mean, I feel like I've always been a bit of an optimist and an idealist. And idealists always have a really difficult time because we see the way that things should be or that we want them to be, but then that there's also the realization that that reality is never going to come to fruition, because most of the time it's either too complicated or too difficult, or people just don't have the bandwidth to make it happen. So I think, in terms of my character and like who I am as a person, it kind of sets me up just to write these types of songs. But I think if we see brighter days ahead, you will get a happier Seymour Glass record. I think next time when I write, I'm gonna put the guitar down for a little bit, for a while, because I'm gonna be going to grad school this
Oh,
next year,
nice.
which is
Congratulations.
crazy. Yeah, man, thank you very much. I've got to get into the school yet, but I'm in the process of applying and all of that. But um, I want to make sure I do that. But I'm going to put the guitar down for a minute and really kind of recalibrate and take a break, and then maybe when I come back, we'll see some happy Seymour Glass songs.
Or this could be the time for like those fun college pop punk songs. Since you're technically
Yeah,
trying to go
you never
back, who
know, man.
knows? Play some
Yeah,
pong and see what happens.
yeah. I need to send you a link to my very first band's demo, so you can so you can hear our pop punk songs. I would be curious to see what you thought.
Okay, hell yeah. I do have on my list here that obviously that we talked about one sound clip. I did want to talk about the other one, because the other one
Sure.
is also uh, a super good sound clip. And its placement is great too. It's
Thank
at
you.
the end of Heavy Conversations, and it's basically, and I'm paraphrasing here. Obviously, it's basically someone saying, now I know I'm going to butcher it, but it's
I can give it for you. So he's
yeah,
like, he's saying, there's a lot of people who have grown up who have never heard the message of the Lord. And at the end of it, he says, so we have decided to preach your funeral while you are living and let you know what the Bible has to say about you. And that's going straight into birthday parties for capitalism.
yeah.
Yeah. So I'll talk about, so I can't remember the name of the reverend, but again, I'm obviously a vinyl nerd. And Ohio's really cool, specifically my area, because there's a lot of very strange records that I find while I'm out, and I really like
Mm.
those oddities. So what when a lot of times my wife and I and her mother-in-law, or my mother-in-law, we go antiquing and stuff, and I'm always on the lookout for just like records that are strange. And I've been picking up like old records that pastors had pressed to vinyl, like their sermons. um
Oh,
yeah, and like, to be clear, I'm not a very religious man, but I'm fascinated by the language that they use and like how they say things. And that one in particular struck me. Like, I remember listening to that the first time, and again, it was a moment where I was like, that has to be on the record. I actually edited it a bit. I cut a piece out of the middle, but I think it works. And I think it really, again, says what needs to be said. Like, how are we doing all of these things and not, and pretending like it's anything that represents Christianity, and also full disclosure, like I grew up Catholic. I was in Catholic school, first grade through 10th grade. So I have a pretty wide understanding of, biblical knowledge. At least I'd like to think so. And I don't, I feel, as far as I know and what I remember from my teachings, it was like, be cool to other people. If
Right.
you have a lot of things, give them to somebody who might need them. Work to feed the poor. Take care of people who need help. Those are the messages that I remember. And I just keep, again, I look around and I'm like, what, why aren't we doing this? So that was really just kind of me being a snarky human and just being like, can you, like, what are people going to say about you when you're dead? That you were rich, or
Yeah.
that you helped somebody, that you were kind to someone, or you gave them an opportunity that they didn't have. Money's going to fade. It's going to go away. And all we're going to have are our memories and our experiences, and the people who are close to us. And I just, again, I don't, the hypocrisy, it blows me away.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
Uh,
that's, yeah, go
yeah,
ahead.
I know. I totally feel you. Like I'm also the same way. I didn't go to specifically Catholic school, but I had Sunday school every day from kindergarten to 10th grade.
Yeah,
Every weekend, doing that sometimes during the week, and it's
yeah,
just crazy to see. Like, thankfully, I didn't grow up. This is thankfully no offense to anyone
sure.
in the South, but thankfully I didn't grow up in the South because I feel like it's at least in the Midwest, it was from everything we see on TV, it's a lot calmer. But it's still, if you were to talk to people today and like what they're going through, it's nowhere in there did it ever say the things that we're hearing now.
Yeah,
It was just like you said. It was help the poor, help the needy, be kind to your neighbor, and go from there. And the
yep.
fact that everyone has misconstrued or just blown everything out of proportion is just insane to think of.
Yeah, it's deeply upsetting. I hope we get back to a place where Christianity is able to embrace that message of like acceptance and love and peace and taking care of people. And not to say that there aren't people out there already doing that. I have a lot of friends who, are still practicing, Christians, and they're wonderful, amazing people. And like, also to be clear, like that song is not directed at them. It's very much directed at the people who are misusing these messages and
Yep.
using these messages that should be about peace to hurt people who don't deserve it. So
Yeah, 100. Like that's obviously how I took it too. Was not at like not at the masses, but at the few individuals that kind of ruin it for everybody.
for sure.
But yeah, it's a crazy quote to pull off a record. Um,
It is.
Literally pull off a record to put into this album. It makes me wonder, like, out of your other kind of weird oddities that you found, like going to the stores, obviously
Mm-hmm.
you found this pastor's recorded sermon. What are some other like odd records that you might have found in your time? Obviously,
Oh,
we have the
dude.
record wall behind you. I gotta bring it up.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So actually there's one that I was going to put on the record and ended up not doing it. And I think, okay, let me get the pastor's name right. His name was Reverend Ray Snyder, right? And he was playing this Hammond B3 organ. And the first side of the record is all just him playing these like religious songs on this B3 organ. And the dude was like out of like Zanesville, I think. So I'm assuming it was pressed for like his congregation, and like it doesn't exist anywhere else in the world because I can't even find it on Discogs to like log
Mm,
it. Um, so I got that, but the other side, he does this really cool telling of Jonah and the whale. And it's like told for kids, and he's again playing the organ while he tells it. And oh man, I wish it was gonna go before um right before Funeral Pasta, because Funeral Pasta has the line about the whale swallowing me whole, which is a reference to Jonah. Um, and it just, when I heard it in with the record, it felt like too much, and I was just like, I don't know. But I actually thought about actually thought about doing like a small just a thing where people could just listen to other clips that I was planning on having on this record. There's also I might upload this to Bandcamp just because I think it's really important, but I have this folk record by a woman named I'm gonna butcher her name, Sarah Ogan Gunning, and she was the wife of a coal miner back in the 50s, and like just her whole family like died as a result of like she lost her husband to tuberculosis, and her children, like her baby died because she couldn't afford to feed it, and like her mother died. Like it's just horrific story for this woman, but she ended up becoming kind of popular in that area in like West Virginia, and even I think New York later on, for singing folk songs. So and I'm like really into stuff like that, just like history and the way that music is kind of taken by the working class and used as a form to fight back against the bourgeoisie, so to speak. Um, but she does this song and it's called I Hate the Capitalist System. And I had it in my head. I was like, this is going on the record. I was gonna plop it right in between Deliverance and Surrender to the Sound, and just be like, all right, you're gonna listen to this woman sing a cappella 5 minutes about how much she hates the capitalist system. And then I thought better of it, and I was like, I don't know, but maybe I'll do a cover of it one day, because
Yeah, there you go.
that's how I feel. And I mean, her emotion in that song is just it's chilling, man. Like it's one that you know it's hard to listen to because it's so powerful. But I'm really glad that I own a copy of it. What's interesting about it too is she actually did a version of it on a record previous. So she did two records. On her first record, she did one, and it was called "I Hate the Company Bosses," because everybody told her like you can't say you hate the capitalist system, like you're not allowed to say that. And then she actually re-recorded it on a record later and did it the way that she originally intended. And I think that's pretty cool too, because I
That
hear
is
that a lot
awesome.
from people too, because they're like, you can't say you hate capitalism, you're a participant in it. And it's like, well, just because I have to participate in a system that I exist in doesn't mean I have to like it, you know? So rant over.
Yeah. No, yeah, that's awesome that like yeah, she succumbed to the censorship basically on the first one and then was like, no, screw that. I'm doing this
Yeah,
how it needs to be and getting it out there. Um
yeah.
but I
Incredible
also got
history
well,
too.
I also want to commend you on something you said where you were gonna put a sound clip in, but you decided not to because you thought it like, added too much to the record. That
Yeah.
is that has always been a big point of mine when I'm listening to a record.
Hmm.
As much as I love sound clips and horns in these EPs and albums, there is a moment where it becomes too much, and I
Yeah.
commend you for at least seeing that
Thank you.
because sometimes people don't see it, and then your album just becomes a little too much sound clips, or if you add too much horns when you're not a horn band, you become a horn band in your
Yeah.
record, but really it's just supposed to be those subtlenesses and
Yeah.
for everyone listening, that is something to consider when you're doing that stuff.
I agree. And again, I'm fortunate that I have, an incredible partner in Rachel, and she just like I said, she's my go-to. She's she helps me with a lot of lyrics. So she's actually there are some songs on this record that she's a co-writer on. So like Surrender to the Sound, Funeral Pasta, the song If We're Not Here, We're Probably Somewhere Else, which is the fourth track. Um, that song would not exist without her, because I'll tell a story. This is actually kind of a fun story. So this is kind of a happy story, I guess. But um, she was like, we were sitting around in the living room, and sometimes we do like writing sessions, and just because we're nerds and we both love literature, because she's an English teacher as well. And we were sitting around in the living room, and she was like, you know what? You need to write a sexy song. And I was like, me? A sexy song? I don't know if I have that in me. And she's like, like a song where like people come home and they want to be together, but they can't because just like everything's so frustrating. And, and I was like, that's actually a really great idea. And we pretty much wrote that song that day. I mean, we came up with the chorus. So a lot of the chorus is her. So like the eggshell line, the leave your day at the door line. She was the leave your day at the door line really kind of started it all, and then we build it up to that. But she was a big architect in that song, and it's a very unique song on the record, because again, I don't know if there's a song that exists like that, where a couple comes home and it's like, it's not these two people, it's everything else that's going on that's preventing them from existing within the love that happens in their relationship. um and it's like this idea that like one of us has to be the one to say like, just let's put all this shit aside and let's just exist together, like how do we block out the noise so we can actually just be human beings together and leave our day at the door, so to speak. But she also helped me. I put her as a co-writer on Heavy Conversations. Here's another fun story from the writing of this record. So I was in the basement, and Heavy Conversations is a song that I've been trying to write since I was in college. So that was actually one that I had ideas for in the middle of Roaring Paper Spring, but I couldn't make it work. I just could not figure out how to make that song work, because I kept trying to write it like a traditional song, and the structure of it, I'm sure as you've heard, is very strange. Like there's a chorus, but it only happens once, and there's like a refrain, but like, and there's this whole entirely long interlude, and I don't know. But anyway, I'm in my basement, I'm writing the interlude, and there's a line that says, "If our hearts can burn like constellations, only seen whenever planets align." And I was using like a play on these words like constellation, conversation. What are the other songs in there? Lexication. But so I was using words like that, and I went upstairs because I was like, I was really proud of those lines, and I was like, I have to show her so she can hear him. And I still needed the last line, and she was sleeping on the couch, and I like woke her up, and I was like, hey, I was like, can you listen to this real quick? She's like, oh my God, I'm sleeping. Would you leave me alone? And I'm like, all right, I need you to listen because I'm in the zone. So I played it for her, and I was like, I need another word that sounds like constellation. And just without missing a beat, she went abbreviation. And I'm like, pfft. And that's where the line came from. And I mean, that's what's so cool about having a partner who's like willing to invest themselves in your art too. This wouldn't happen without her, because she's ultimately a lot of the inspiration and also really the co-writer, of a lot of these, and the editor. So yeah, but going back to the clip idea, she's the one. I told her about the Jonah one, and I played it for her with the song, and she was like, "Yeah, I don't know if it works." And I was like, "Yeah, you confirmed what I already know. It just breaks my heart because I don't want to leave it off because it's so cool, but whatever." So
Right. It's nice to have that other person in your corner that will tell you whether something works or not, and like
it's
they're not
great.
telling you because like they're not going to sugarcoat it to an extent. Like they're going to be like, hey, like this just doesn't work. It's nice to
Yeah.
have that person.
Oh, she's wonderful, and I mean, she's always brutally honest. And again, like as a creative person, that's the best person to have around, because they're not gonna, blow smoke up your ass. Like she's never done that with my work. She's always been brutally honest about it. For I think, I don't know if I've told this story on a podcast or not, but when I was writing Graveyard Gertie, and I did the song "He Has His Father's Eyes," which was kind of the single off of that EP. That song was originally had completely different lyrics, and I wrote it about like an argument that we had. And I went upstairs and I played it for her, and I was really excited because it was the first song I'd written in a very long time. Because I did what's the first song off that record? Oh, I don't know. It's the one about the dog winds blooming on Sling Lift. That record, I wrote that song, and then there was like a 7 year gap, and then I wrote "He Has His Father's Eyes," but a different version, and I played the original version for her, and she was like, "Those lyrics are not good. Like I you need to go back to the drawing board on that one." They crushed my soul, but she was right. Because the song came out infinitely better, and I think that song really pushed me to become a better writer too. So it was just part of the journey, and it helped me like learn to accept criticism. And the best people to have in your life are the people who are going to tell you when you're full of shit.
Yeah, that is
And
true.
she will do that, and I'm very grateful that she does. Uh, Keeps me humble.
And I think you mentioned earlier the same person that did the Roy Paper Spring album cover is doing this one as well.
Yeah, Tony. So yeah, Tony actually just got me the art. I just did all my stuff last night for DistroKid for the so it's all ready and up and ready to go out. We went with the Polaroid. So this art is
Ooh.
almost kind of reminiscent of the Graveyard Gertie art. So it's a black and white Polaroid. And it's a play off of a postcard that I bought one time, where it has this like skeleton and there's this like cloaked like hermit like figure kind of like looking back at the skeleton, and the skeleton's like, perched and ready to pounce. So he actually found this really cool skeleton and was able to set it up in such a way that it looked real. And then he had my good friend Adam, who's been a part of pretty much all of the projects so far in some kind of artistic way. He put the cloak on and he's like turning around. So they created this real life version of this postcard that I got. And really, I just gave the postcard to Tony, and I was like, I want to do something with this. Like, I was gonna just do the postcard, but like I wanted him to be involved, and he ended up coming with something cool, just like the last time. So again, very very blessed to have these really cool people in my life who help me with my crazy harebrained artistic ideas. Yeah, he just brought it over last Saturday, and he was like, "Here's all the Polaroids." The interesting thing is that the cover was the only Polaroid that he happened to have that was black and white, and that
Mm.
was the one that we chose. So serendipity.
Hell yeah! Well, I'm stoked to see it when it finally gets posted. Because
Yeah,
it just at the time it hasn't been like you said, you just got it. So I'm just
yeah,
really stoked to kind of see it because
it's cool.
like we kind of mentioned earlier, the Roaring Paper Spring cover art is super good, super well done, and like Tony did a bang out job with that. So I'm really stoked to see what he does for this one.
Thanks, man. Yeah, he's amazing. I love that dude, and he's always down. Like he's a great artist in and of himself. I should really post his stuff or have it on my link tree or something on Instagram so that people can go check out his work. I mean, because he's painting all the time. He just had his first solo art show in Canton, which was really impressive. He did this amazing art, still working with the robots. I think last time on the show I mentioned that he was doing a lot of these pieces with robots, but these new ones were just like on another level. I think like his I think it's the lift where you he like gesso lifts comic book pages onto the painting and then like paints around that. So
Mm.
there's like little frames from comic books on the painting, and like if you get close enough, you can see like there's a whole story like happening within the painting. So it's not just this robot that's like looking at something, like there's a whole experience happening underneath, which is really kind of beautiful. So I would recommend if anybody gets the opportunity, Anthony Cantini, check out his work. I'll try and post it on my Instagram, so that way people can go check out his stuff because he deserves way more attention than he gets, and he's a great artist.
And I feel like we should also probably shout out because I remember the last time you had. I know we mentioned one of the friends already help out with this record because obviously
Yes, sir.
Seymour Glass is just you,
Yep.
and you bring in some people to kind of help out for this entire
Mhm.
record. Who else helped out, and like what all did they do to kind of bring this record to its full extent?
Yeah, so I kept this one really simple. Last one I really wanted an experience of like collaboration, and like I was really kind of in that moment where I wanted everybody to be on it that I could possibly have. And with this record, I didn't really have that opportunity, and I think it's just because like Lonnie, who played bass on the last record, he has 3 kids now, and it's really in a full-time job. So being a parent and having a full-time job, there's not a lot of time to really kind of go play on your other friends like goofy record. So I like Lonnie didn't get to, but Kyle did drums again. So Kyle Spinell from Church Tongue did drums again for me, and knocked him out in 2 days because he's just that good. And then Aaron, I did a lot of the guitar and I did the vocals. This time, because I'm a pop punk bassist, so I'm like Mark Hoppus style bassist. I wanted the bass to be more prominent, and I know I'm not that. Uh, I guess I don't want to say talented, but like it's not my skill. So Aaron, who is the greatest musician who's ever lived, uh, played bass on this record, and also did some of the like backing guitars and some of the leads. Um, so after Kyle left, right? So we tracked this record in 13 days. So
Wow.
everything that you hear is done in 2 weeks, basically. And that's really how I wanted it, because I was listening to a lot of Fugazi, and I was listening to like hardcore bands that like just went in, knocked it out, and left. And the Roaring Paper Spring experience was like we started in November of 21, no, of 2020, and then we ended up finishing the record I think in October of 21. So there was like this whole year of like going through the recording process and demoing and everything, and I was like I loved that experience, but I wanted something different. And I told Aaron, I was like, I want it to be like, first takes, and I want it to be like that's what it is. I don't want to sweat over parts. I want the original intensity to be what comes through on the record, because there's something to that. There's a reason that Fugazi records are so incredible, and it's just because they just go in, they knock it out, and they leave, and then all that intensity just lives in the record. Um so yeah, that we just did it in 13 days, and Aaron played a lot of those guitars and stuff, but other than that, that's pretty much it. So Kyle did drums, Aaron did bass and some guitar. I did guitar and vocals. All the backup vocals are me, with the exception of St. Judas, who came to sing on track 9, Dreams of a Rose, because I love that guy. And also, there's a line about Judas, and I was like, it would be an absolute crime if I didn't have St. Judas, the man himself, come and sing on this song. So we made it happen, and he's perfect. He's just a wonderful person.
Hell
So
yeah.
and, yeah, he's great, man, and he knocked it out of the park, and it sounds really cool. I was really excited to have him be a part of it again.
Yeah, that is amazing. Shout out St. Judas. That they just put out a little split with I think Maple Brown played.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. On side
it's
note, I did backup vocals for that song,
hell
for
yeah.
his song on there. And like, I'm a fan of Saint Judas. Like outside of my friendship with him, that song, I can't remember the name of it, but it starts off with the "Call Me When You Need a Distraction." The best song he's written so far. It blew me away when he sent it to me. He was like, "Would you do like gang vocals on this?" And I was like, "Yes." Like, when do you need it? Because I want to be a part of it. It's so good. Go pick it up, buy it, stream it. It's a great freaking song. It's honest. It's brilliant. It's great stuff.
Uh, and then I kind of wanted to jump back into a point you were talking about how Roaring Paper Spring almost took a year basically for the recording process,
Yep.
and then switching it to being basically 13 days.
Yeah.
One, it's got to be tough recording something for that long because you're sitting like I would imagine as someone like me, maybe like you as well, like where you're sitting on it for that long, where you're going back and you're like, oh, this needs to be tweaked or this needs to be tweaked by the time you're getting to the end. So it's
Yeah.
nice to have that the ability just to go in, like you said, just do as many one tracks as you can, just knock it out. That way,
Hmm.
it's how it's supposed to be. Is
Hmm.
that something that you think? Obviously, that's something that you came up with between LPs, but is there anything else that you might have changed from going, Roaring Paper Spring LP into this new LP that like you kind of were like, hey, this didn't work. We need to try it this way.
Not really. When we were doing Roaring Paper Spring, like Aaron was like he did a lot. We did a lot of it in his basement at his house, and then he moved to the studio for the end. So that was a big transition period, and an interesting experience for him. And I was just like flying by the seat of my pants. So I was kind of at the mercy of everything that, and we, both have full-time jobs. So a lot of what I did, I had to do in the summer. So I would usually go over on like a Friday when he wasn't working, and we would track drums that day. So drums took longer, specifically because he'd give Kyle the tracks on a Wednesday, and then Kyle would come in and do 3 tracks on a Friday, and then we did that for like 3 weeks.
Mm.
So it was just because our lives weren't conducive to um just taking time to record uh in a block. So we just didn't have the luxury of it. And with this one, it just happened that Aaron's at a point now where he's starting to make a lot of his money from recording. So he's getting some business because he's really good at what he does, and people hear it and they're like, I want to record with this guy. I can't. It's Redbird Studios. He's also teaches guitar, I believe, on Mondays at Off the Wall Music in New Philadelphia. So Redbird Studios. If anybody listens and they want to have their recordings sound incredible, uh, look him up. Give him your business, and I guarantee you will not have a more positive experience than you will have with Aaron, because he is, everything that I wanted to try, he was down for. He was open to every idea. He's one of the best musicians I've ever met. And I was just like, yeah, can you play, like, can you do this on bass? He's like, oh, okay. And then he would do it. And he knew exactly what I was thinking, and I think some of that's our friendship, but I think a lot of that, though, is just that's just who he is as a person. He's just that incredible and that intuitive as a sound engineer, as a recording artist, as a musician. But yeah, man. So the 13 days thing, it was really just because we had the luxury of it. So this past summer in July, I think it was the second and third week of July, 2020. What year is it? 2024. He was like, let's plan out 3 weeks if we need them. He said, I think we're really only going to need 2. And I'm like, dude, I think you think I'm better than I actually am. He's like, well, I think we'll be all right. We'll just need 2 weeks, and ended up just going one day over 2 weeks. So it worked out.
Yeah, and I gotta agree with you. Like, I mean, this record and Roaring Paper Spring both came out amazing. So,
Thank you.
Aaron does a great job, and
Great.
obviously you do a great job as well.
Thank you.
And like with both records, and like it's it's nice to see this. Like kind of what I said at the beginning, where this is kind of like that angstier like B side of Roaring Paper Spring.
Yeah.
So it's nice to see kind of both of these in their own light. So I'm excited to kind of because I listened to yesterday a lot of Roaring Paper Spring, and then today just listened to the new album.
Hmm.
So I'm excited to see the point where I end up listen when you come back for LP3 or whatever you decide to do next, and I go and do my deep dive again, listening to Roaring Paper Spring into this new album and
Yeah.
seeing how they actually flow together. I'm excited for that.
Yeah, thank you, man. And like, just to kind of add on to that, I feel like this record is a continuation of Roaring Paper Spring. So it does feel like almost like a sister, like an evil twin to it.
Yeah.
And there are songs when I was done with Roaring Paper Spring, like there were ideas that I still had. I Interestingly enough, I have a notebook, and I wrote all the lines that I really liked that I didn't use on Roaring Paper Spring. And it was just like cool lines to use in songs. And I had like a list of them. And when I was writing songs for this record and I got stuck, I always went back to that list. And all of those lines ended up making it into these songs in one way or another. Um, so I feel like that kind of bridged the gap for these two. And like I said, with Heavy Conversations, I feel like Heavy Conversations is the most like pop punk song on the record. And that's because it was coming to fruition during the writing process of Roaring Paper Spring. It's a song about not being able to communicate with the people you love. I'll leave that vague on purpose because I don't know who's going to listen to this. Um, but it's it's about like ignoring the things that you need to talk about and sacrificing it for, just pleasantries. And that's a hard thing to write about, especially when you have people in your life who aren't able to have those conversations for some reason. And I started off writing that in college. um, Very different lyrics, but the same idea. And I kept coming back to that concept, repeatedly, probably over the past like 10 years. And I got the chorus about heavy conversations, or the intro part. We had a conversation on the phone about the weather and how I'm always falling into all the same destructive patterns. Like that part, I had that, but I didn't know what else to do with it. And it was through this process that I was able to kind of let go of the idea that it needed to be this traditional pop punk or like song structure, like this verse chorus interlude, whatever. And then I just was like, okay, I'm gonna just let it be what it is. And once I kind of freed myself from those, shackles, the song really came together. um so have you listened to that one a lot? Like, like a little bit what about what I'm talking about with that song, like in terms of the structure? Because I feel like it's structured very odd.
I mean, I remember you mentioned it being structured odd. I guess I didn't feel like it was odd, mainly
Good.
because like
Okay.
um
Perfect.
because like obviously when people think of like a generic song structure, it's
Yeah.
verse chorus, maybe another chorus, and then like it ends.
Hmm.
But I feel
Yeah.
like a lot of people nowadays are kind of shifting away from that normal structure and then kind of doing their own
Yeah.
thing. So I
I
think that's
agree.
one of the reasons why I didn't feel like it was odd in any way.
Oh, good.
Just to have like
Good.
its own like one standing chorus and then not go back to
Yeah.
it. Um,
I always I've tried to do that because I love Bob Dylan, and I feel like Bob Dylan does that a lot. Not so much like shifts the structure of the song, but there's a lot of songs that he writes where there's actually no chorus. And if you listen to this record, you'll notice that like at the very end, like All Quitters Are Romantic, Harvard, Dreams of a Rose, and the very last song do not have a chorus. They're just verses. They have like a refrain, but there is no chorus. And I was a little nervous about that because I know, like, I guess just in terms of like marketing, not that I'm concerned with that anyway, but like you got to have a chorus. You got to have something that people can latch on to, that they can sing along to. And my I guess my rebellious nature, I was just like, screw having a chorus. Who needs a chorus in these songs? But they work. I At least I think so. And I'm kind of excited about that experimentation and just kind of shirking that traditional method of songwriting, because we've got that. We've got, you want to listen to a traditional song, you can go listen to Taylor Swift, and she will give you all the traditional songs. There's nothing wrong with it. But I was like, you know what? I'm just going to let the songs breathe and be what they are. But the interesting thing about Heavy Conversations is it starts with the refrain, it goes to the verse, and it has a pre chorus, a chorus, and then it goes back into a pre chorus, and then it goes into an interlude that never actually ends. Like it goes back to the refrain, but like you never get back to that chorus. So there's never that kind of resolution or that thing that you're waiting for, which I love too, because, it's a song about unresolved issues. So the fact that the
right.
song remains unresolved throughout, like you never go back to the things that you want to hear, is kind of fun in like just a subconscious, like subliminal way.
Yeah. I remember just because I mentioned their album earlier. I was listening to Southtown Lane's new album. They're going to be on. They're on an episode that's already happened. Time's a
Mm-hmm.
construct. The, but like their album is a lot of like about death. So like the way that the album ends is like we have this really great outro going, and then there's
Mm-hmm.
like 10 seconds left, and they just cut it. They just do a Sopranos cut, just like hard,
Oh,
and it leaves you in the same aspect of like wanting just to finish that last 10 seconds, and it's
I
just
love
like where is it, and like Uh,
What band is this
like
again?
Southtown Lanes.
Southtown Lanes. Okay. I
Yeah,
know what I'm listening to tomorrow.
yeah, it's a killer album, and they did that, and they just did it and let it happen, and it's kind of the
Hell
same
yeah.
way where you're talking about like you kind of want it to go back, but at the same time, you're already on that long track out of
Yeah.
town where you can't go back and get that little bit of chorus that you kind of want again in that
Yeah.
song.
That's so important. I think as, songwriters is just to like trust the song. No,
Yeah,
let the song do what it does. And don't, feel like you need to do something specific just because that's what it traditionally is. There's nothing more frustrating to me than like listening to a song, and just being like, this is just it could have been cool, but like you just didn't let it breathe. You just
yeah.
didn't work it enough. Like it just wasn't. You didn't give the concept enough time to figure out what the song needed to be, and you were just like, "Oh, I've got this hook. There we go. There's our chorus. That's it." Um,
Imagine how many songs would be like even better than they already are if they would have just cut at one chorus and threw in like another verse that would have just like taken it up a notch and just did like maybe two chorus spots or even one chorus spot and just like let
yeah,
it do its thing.
agreed, man. Like, or if like we as listeners, or I guess like as mainstream listeners, like don't just want clips or like 30 seconds of like a hook or 3-minute pop song. Like if we were able to engage with art long enough to really allow it to say what it needs to say, because I think that's kind of a destructive form of art too sometimes, is the way that like it's like, oh well, we have to market this, we have to sell this to somebody.
Mm.
And it's like, I mean, that's cool if that's your thing. Um, Fortunately, I have the luxury of that not being a thing for me, so I can do whatever the hell I want. But I love that. I love that, and I would sacrifice like money and marketability for that creative freedom any day, any day.
Well, you don't have to worry too much because this is, like I said, a killer album that everyone should be listening to, anyways.
Mhm.
Obviously, I've mentioned it before. TikTok has kind of ruined a lot of mentalities because we're all in this 30-second loop.
Yeah.
But it's nice to find an album that you can just kind of sit back and listen to. And like the one other nice thing with this album too is with a lot of albums, you kind of have that like 1 to 4 listens of just like kind of trying to get past the instrumentals and then started getting into the lyrics.
Sure.
Like I found myself like singing along by listen 3. So
Wow.
like I was already like on the path. So like it's a good solid album in
Thank you.
like every aspect.
That means the world to me. Like I said, you're like really the kind of the first feedback I'm getting. So to hear that, that's very humbling and exciting. I hope this is something that resonates with people. This album really came from, both of my albums really came from a personal place. This came from a bit of a darker place, but I was trying to say things like, well, I mean, that's just art though, right? You write what you feel and then you put it out there and be like, do you feel this way too? And if it's good, if it's real, if it's honest, and like other people share that experience, it's going to resonate with them, regardless of whether or not it's marketable or, there's so many, great artists right now. I mean, completely different genre. Chapel Roan, like, my God, what, where did she come from? And she is an absolute blessing. That the Rise and Fall of a Midwest Princess, I think, is the name of that record. One of my favorite pop records I've ever heard. I'm a massive fan of pop music. Brilliant album. I love every song. I sing along to it. But again, like I'm a 30 going on 36-year-old straight white guy, and she's like, 20-year-old, you know, uh, lesbian woman. And it's like, what do we have in common? I don't know, but I love these songs. They resonate with me. There's an honesty to it. There's a realness to it that transcends that differences in that experience. Um, and I just absolutely love it. I'm it's so neat scrolling reels and seeing like all of these other artists playing her songs, like Orville Peck. Like I love Orville Peck, dude. And he did Pink Pony Club. And I was like, what is going on here? This is incredible. Like Melissa Etheridge, I think, did a cover of a Chaperone song. I'm just blown away by the people that her music is resonating with, because it's resonating not only with, like, I feel like youth culture right now, but it's resonating with like older artists and musicians. And it's something I've never really seen before. Taylor Swift, like, just to draw a comparison, she's a great writer and she writes
Mm-hmm.
really good pop songs, but I've never seen like people latch onto her work the way that people have latched onto Chaperone, because there's something new there. There's something exciting. There's something that resonates that hasn't been said before. And she's communicating a really cool and unique experience in a very honest way. So I'm a big believer that, like, if you say what you want to say and it's honest and it's true and it's emotional, and you do it with care and respect, I think it'll resonate with people. And I hope this record does, because it came from a very honest, albeit terrified place.
Well, like I said, you could put those worries to the side. Like I'm sure everyone's gonna love this record. I know I loved it. St. Judas, I know for sure loves it, and
Dude,
I know everyone else is too.
thanks, man. Thank you very much.
No, yeah, like this is a solid album. I love that it's also like a solid follow up to Rolling Paper Spring, because like I feel like you set a bar with that and you met that bar with this record at the same time.
Thank you.
So I truly am stoked to see kind of what you do next and where you take the bar from here,
Thank you so
and
much, man.
everything you have going forward. I know obviously you're not going to be touring and doing a bunch of shows for this, but
Yeah.
hopefully you get a chance to kind of do at least one show or another little performance for some of these songs to kind of get them out there as well.
If I ever play live, man, you're gonna be the first person I message and let you know that it's happening. But yeah, I would love to do that. Maybe I'll do like an Instagram thing. I'll do like an Instagram live thing
Yeah.
or something. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. We'll
Oh
see.
yeah.
I don't know. All kinds of crazy
Uh,
stuff can happen.
and then I know like the big thing with Roaring Paper Spring is you kind of did this Kickstarter to kind of help raise funds for the records, and then you ended up partnering with Lonely Ghost and put out some tapes. Is there any plans to kind of do something physical media for this record?
That was just man, I'm still not over that experience. I still can't believe it happened. Like every time I listen to that record, Roaring Paper Spring, every once in a while on vinyl. Every time I pull it, I'm like, how is this real? This doesn't even make sense. I put some copies in Square Records in Akron. So if you go to Akron, you can pick it up at Square Records for $13. But I was scrolling through the records one day and I completely forgot that I'd taken a couple copies up there, and I found a copy of it amongst the other records, and I was like, I mean, what's a cool experience than being like an artist that you find your own record in a record store, your favorite record store, mind you. Um, so yeah, but I don't have any plans for vinyl at the moment. A lot of that is just because I my wife was in grad school last year, and she did 16 months of that while doing teaching, and uh, it was really exhausting for us. And it was a team effort. She did a lot of the work, in her schoolwork and stuff, and we had to really work together to get through it. And she actually just got her diploma today, which
Oh,
was a
congratulations!
very
Sorry.
powerful experience. But we were just so kind of involved with that process, and I didn't want to let these songs sit, so I figured it be better to record them and get them out. I might do vinyl later. I hope if it resonates with people, I absolutely will. If people request it and are interested, but I don't have any plans at the moment, and a lot of that's just because I love doing the Kickstarter. I love doing the music videos last time, but it was exhausting. And it was a ton of work to do, like, by myself. So all the music videos I did last time I did by myself, all of the Kickstarter awards, and like, I mean, my buddy Adam came down and helped me send all of this stuff out. But also, like, you have to remember, like, there was 7 months in between me getting the Kickstarter money and getting the albums. So I was sitting on like $5,000 of other people's money for like 7 months, which
Oof.
was really weird and uncomfortable. And I don't think it would be that bad this time, but it was a lot of stress, and I need a year with no stress. So
Don't we all?
this year is like, after I get this thing out, it's like even keel before I go into my master's degree. And then hopefully the next time that I talk to you, we'll be talking about me getting my diploma and putting out something new.
Hell yeah. Well, I look forward to that. If everyone's looking for merch, music, or Seymour Glass, where can they find it?
You can find me on Spotify. That's probably the easiest place. For merch, I still have CDs. I still have vinyl copies of Roaring Paper Spring that you can pick up. I believe they're $20, and all of that is on Bandcamp. So www.seemorglass.bandcamp.com. On Instagram at SeeMoreGlassOH for Ohio. And then I'm still on Twitter, but I deleted the app from my phone because I couldn't stand it. I might be on there like once a week, but I don't post much, and I try to avoid the Elon Musk mess.
Dude,
So
I feel you. I was talking to someone the other day, and they're like, I mentioned Twitter, and they're like, "You're still on there?" And I'm like, if it wasn't for the DIY music community, I would not be on
yeah,
Twitter still.
yeah, absolutely, man. I need a break. I got to a point where I was like, I can't. Like, it was affecting my moods. It's like, I need to get off. I need to quit scrolling Twitter. If anybody's interested, and I will say this, if anybody's interested and wants to reach out and have a conversation about these songs, or has a personal experience with these songs, please, by all means, message me on Instagram or send me an email at SeeMoreGlass128 at gmail.com, because I love talking to people about my music. I love hearing people's experiences. One of my favorite things that came out of Roaring Paper Spring, I had a person that I had never met. I believe they bought the vinyl, but they messaged me and told me that, like, Roaring Paper Spring was a song that they sang with their son on when they took him to school. And I was just like, I mean, it brought tears to my eyes. I was like, what a beautiful thing to share. So if anybody ever wants to reach out or share something like that, I would love to listen, and I would definitely engage with you in conversation, because I am not a big enough artist to be like, I'm overwhelmed with people talking to me. And the beautiful thing about being an artist on this scale is that I get to have those kinds of conversations. So if my work resonates with you, please reach out. Tell me what you think. And I would welcome any kind of conversation.
Well, everyone, depending on where you found this episode, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Threads, or you watched the YouTube version and got to see Neal's lovely face like I did tonight, make sure you check the hyperlinks down below. Go follow Seymour Glass on all the socials. Be ready for potential new music, maybe vinyl coming out in the future sometime. Go get your copies of Roaring Paper Spring if you haven't already, and just stay up to date with all things Seymour Glass. And like you said, email him if you have any connection or anything resonates with you. Obviously, you saw how this conversation went today, and I'm sure you'll have just as good a conversation with Neal as I did. One last big thank you to you for one, wanting to come back on, two, coming back on and actually doing it. It's been a long time since episode 85, and I'm happy we got to reconnect.
I love it, dude. We'll do it again on the next one.
Hell yeah, can't wait. And everyone, go listen to Seymour Glass and listen to The Things in Life That I Can't Leave Behind. And I'll catch everyone on the next episode.
Peace.
See ya.
With